Hi guys, and welcome back! We're glad you're here because today we're going to share 10 things you should know about Toronto before moving to this city. And we will share some mind-blowing statistics too. For instance, how much time an average Torontonian spends in traffic per year. And even if you're traveling to Toronto as a tourist for a week or so, I think you will find some of these tips useful about Toronto, its culture, and what it's like to live here.
Both Anna and I have been living in Toronto for a couple of years now. Anna lived in a smaller Canadian town previously in Chatham, and I lived in Montreal. So moving to Toronto presented us with a number of interesting challenges and exciting discoveries, and we'd like to share them with you guys so that you can make a much more educated decision when you're thinking of moving to Toronto.
Let's get into it. And the first thing you should know is that Toronto is huge. Did you know that Toronto is the 5th largest city in the whole North America? Back in 2013, it briefly surpassed Chicago to place 4th, and up until today, Chicago and Toronto go head to head with just a few 100,000 inhabitants difference. The city has 6.3 million population and takes up 630.2 square kilometers of land. It would take you at least 40 minutes driving or 2 hours to get from the west end of Toronto to the east end. And that's on the good day. So if you are going to move to Toronto, you should think strategically about where you want to live, relative to where you're going to work, where your friends or school are, or places where you'd like to hang out.
Traffic in Toronto is really bad too. Such big population is really bad news for the traffic. The numbers that we've called out earlier, 40 minutes and 2 hours, is actually your best case scenario. According to TomTom data, Toronto is among top 30% most congested cities in the world. Average Torontonian spends 84 hours or 3 whole days and 12 hours per year in traffic. 3 days! Imagine, it's the 3 days you will never get back in your life. It's almost as if your year was not 365 days, but 362 days. Let it sink in. The good news is that COVID has had a very positive impact on the city traffic. The time spent in traffic fell by a dramatic 40% in 2021 compared to 2019, which used to be 5 days and 23 hours. All that to say is that if you want to live in Toronto, avoid the rush hour at all costs. And if you're in a rush and you absolutely have to go somewhere in the rush hour, just add 30 minutes on top of your regular plans just to be safe. And if you do have to travel during rush hours because you work at the office, we recommend using public transit. It's pretty decent here in Toronto, and it's certainly much better than having to circle around in search of parking or paying abnormally high parking fees here.
Traffic is just one of the reasons why we think having a car in Toronto is a bad idea. Owning a car is expensive. Transportation in Canada is the second largest expense of Canadians after household expenses. See, it accounts for nearly 20% of your expenses, while household expense is around 31%. When you think about car ownership, it's not just how much your car costs. You also need to account for other things like car insurance, gas, seasonal car maintenance, and parking fees. In Ontario, car insurance is among the highest among provinces, and the average car insurance is around $1,800 per year. You should add that to the gas prices that have almost doubled since 2 years ago, which now costs $2 per liter, and now you're looking at $1,000 of monthly expense. On the other hand, with all that being said, if you're actually like us and you like convenience and you don't have to commute during rush hours, and you like spending time outdoors and you like road trips, you're better off with a car, because it's actually cheaper and more convenient than using other means of transportation all the time.
If you're young and beautiful and don't have a family to start, you will blend right in Toronto. The most recent census revealed that the millennial population has recently overthrown the baby boomer population in Toronto. Every third resident of the city is between 25 to 40 years of age. Toronto is a massive business, technology, and culture center, so young and ambitious professionals have been flocking to the city in search of opportunities and career growth. and they don't mind living with roommates and working 10 hours in order to make their ends meet, and all that while baby boomers and folks over 40 have silently been moving out west or to more rural areas of Ontario, starting families, buying homes, and focusing more on their free time rather than work. If you're planning to start a family soon, think twice on whether or not you want to move to Toronto, because raising a child in Toronto and in Canada generally is pretty expensive, and you might be better off in another city or in a much more suburban area.
Childless millennials prefer their own kind of children. They opt in for our little furry friends. The first thing you notice in Toronto is how much of population is dog owners. They're everywhere. Torontonians love dogs so much that there is even a fountain dedicated to dogs.
Talking about road trips, could you ever imagine this is in Ontario? Or perhaps this? It looks like Caribbean, right? And it's just 30 minutes away drive from Toronto. There are many provincial and federal parks of Canada in Ontario with some of the best beaches in the country. While some are just 30 minutes away like this one, majority are at least 3 to 5 hours away or sometimes even more. Fun fact for you, especially for Europeans, if you drive for 5 hours, you will still be in Ontario, in the same country, in the same province. With approximately 250,000 lakes, Ontario has about 20% of the world's freshwater storage. And the best part is that most of those lakes are remote, which presents a perfect opportunity for a weekend getaway on the lake. And by the way, lakes in Ontario are such a big deal that the name Ontario comes from the Iroquois word for beautiful water. If you do decide to live in Toronto, even for a couple years, we highly recommend you explore Ontario outdoors. Check out the Georgian Bay, the Scarborough Bluffs, and the Bruce Peninsula. And if you don't drive and prefer to stay within the boundaries of the city, Toronto Municipality has a lot to offer too. Numerous Toronto parks offer a lovely place for an afternoon reading session. The Ontario Lake Harbourfront is a perfect place to breathe some of the freshwater air and feel the cool breeze on your face on a hot day. And the Toronto Islands are just a 10-minute ferry ride across the lake, and you will feel like you're miles away from the city.
Let's talk about your favorite one, cost of living. And I'll put it straight for you, Toronto is a very expensive city. Last year it ranked 3rd on the North American House Affordability Index, scoring higher than Los Angeles. Things generally don't look great for Canada, because 4 out of 10 largest Canadian cities are in top 10 least affordable cities. Among all, housing, transportation, utilities and dining out cost a lot more in Toronto for you. Rental prices in Toronto are currently around 46% higher than in other big cities in Canada, with average rent being around $2,000 for a one-bedroom apartment. Utilities like heating, electricity, water and gas are on average 35% more expensive, with about $140 monthly. And unless you're a great negotiator, your phone bill can be 100% more expensive than in other Canadian cities. So if you're thinking of moving to Toronto, you have to make sure you make enough money to sustain those costs. And it's not impossible.
Sure, Anna, the cost of living in Toronto is expensive, but the salaries in Toronto are high too, you might say. Well, let's talk about that. Salaries in Toronto are indeed really high. The average Toronto salary data varies from source to source, but our personal estimations round up to around $68,000 per year as the average salary in Toronto. This is about 15 to 20% higher than the average salary in Canada. However, with the average cost of living in Toronto being 50% higher than in many provinces in Canada, your average salary in Toronto might not cut it. If you want to live comfortably in Toronto, you should look into top paid professions in Toronto, like medical professions, law, or engineering. My personal recommendation is for you to look into the technology space. If you're a marketer, a salesperson, a designer, or an engineer, there's place for you in technology and they pay really well. And if you want for us to cover the technology sector or the technology jobs available in Toronto in a little bit more detail, please hit the like button and let us know what you want to learn from us in the comments below.
Continuing this finances topic in Toronto, one thing that will definitely surprise you is high default tipping rate. Tipping in Canada is just part of culture, and you're usually expected to tip at least 15%. We're not going to argue tipping culture or how and when you should tip, it's a whole other philosophical discussion, but that's how things are in Toronto. When you go out to a restaurant, bar or a coffee shop, it's not uncommon for you to see 18% as the minimum tipping option in the payment terminal, and 20% option is preferred. So if you're thinking about going out and suddenly your restaurant options don't feel pricey enough, well, don't forget to add 20% to tip.
Yep, you've read that right. If you struggle finding a job in Toronto, you probably haven't taken enough time to understand how the Canadian job market works. So if you want to get into that, make sure to check out our careers playlist to get some initial advice. There are over 1 million job openings at any given time in Toronto. Toronto is a big city, and so are the opportunities there. There are constantly thousands of jobs open, and there are opportunities for any kind of profession if you know where to look and how to look. Some professions are in more demand, some are in less demand, but there's always a temporary or part-time job you can opt into while you're looking for your next career move, going to school, or looking to get Canadian experience. So if you want to join the game and gain some Canadian experience and get your first proper job in Canada, make sure to check out our careers playlist and let us know how your job search has been going, or how did it go when you first moved to Canada. So if you want to join a community of newcomers, make new friends, extend the help, or ask for help from fellow newcomers, make sure to head over to our Facebook group in the description link below.
And as usual, if you like this video, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up below and subscribe to this channel not to miss any new content, because we're going to cover more cities in the nearest future. Montreal is coming very soon, so we'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Bye!